Just a minute and we will start. Guests
Gloria?
are still coming.
Wonderful. Gloria looks like she's our Nigerian friend.
Yeah.
I like.
Yes. Yes, David from Nigeria.
Great music. Really good music.
Yeah, I love music. I love music.
Oh yeah, Nigerian music, dance music, and the Afro pop that kind of, and the stuff that came out of Fela, whose last name I can never pronounce correctly. I had an art teacher in UC Santa Cruz who taught, ran an art college for teachers in Nigeria when Fela had his nightclub. And before me, before you, I'm sure, but oh, such good music. You know, I know there's more to the country than the music, but the music is the first thing that, one of the first things that I'm exposed to in new countries. I'm like, wow, you can dance to that.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I think that we can start. If any guests come, we can just accept them. So guys, I'm really happy to see you all at our international webinar. Oops, once more guest. And today we have a very special guest, David Greenfield from the United States. As I mentioned in my post on Facebook, Stellan is coming. Let me accept him. David is an educator, I would say a global educator, artist, technologist, innovator, and really very experienced and amazing personality. And you know, David, he has been at the forefront in the investigation and application of digital technology in education. He has been particularly interested in exploring ways that digital technologies can be used to promote a global learning environment. Hope I am correct, David.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait. Am I muted?
Okay. I mean, hope I said everything correctly.
You did things perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah. So, David, please add something about yourself if you would like to. And please, for the beginning, tell us a little bit of your story as an educator or as a consultant, whatever you want, whatever you wish. And please share with us how technologies in education became your passion, how you got interested in technologies.
Okay, I actually created a presentation, which I'm, slides and everything to bring it, to make sure I don't forget any of the issues, which wait, I'm going to record it. Oh, I need permission. Would you give me?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me see, David. Yeah, I found it. Please check it now.
One more time. Please record permission from the meeting host. I love technology because no matter what you plan for, it never works exactly as you want it. Then that's good. Let me get my presentation up because I have some bio in that, and then I'll go through some of the issues and what we're doing and everything else. So to all of you, first to Hussein for inviting me. This is just really cool. It's really nice to be able to do this. And I'll get to that, some of the reasons why in a second. Let me get this going. Share my screen. There we are. Share. And play. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever it is. Oh, Stellan. Hi. I see all these great faces. I'm really excited. So the topic is thinking in technology. You'll understand more about why I've titled it this as we go on. This was a desk of mine a few years ago. So you see I'm completely surrounded with technology, 1 tablet and 3 computers, and a rubber duck. So, you know, you've got to have a rubber duck next to you, a toy, to remind you to loosen up when you're working sometimes. Also because I'm a goof. Our agenda is to do some brief introductions, some basic definitions, some examples, ideas, and question and discussion. So I only have 40 minutes, so let's see what if we can accomplish this all. And another desk of mine when I only had 2 machines going. All right, I'm Dr. David Greenfield, or David to you. And as Lucine said, I'm an artist, an educator, a technologist. My background really is in fine art, primarily painting, printmaking, drawing. I studied it, although I didn't graduate it. I studied fine art, studio art for 3 years at University of California at Santa Cruz. And I had some really fabulous teachers. And it's amazing what, you know, you're all teachers, you know, when you get a good teacher, that teacher will be with you your whole life and teaching you even when you're long gone. I have art teachers that I studied with that their lessons will still pop up when I'm working. I'll be working on something and think, oh yeah, I learned that with this person, and that's what they meant. You know, things happen in life. So a good teacher is really, I salute you and thank you all for doing the work that you're doing. I've always had a long interest in collaboration, of working between organizations, between schools, between people. When people say they did it by themselves, no one does anything by themselves. And it starts from the very beginning. You know, first thing when you wake up and you put on your clothes, unless you grew the material or grew the plants that were then modified to become cotton, that were then woven and then cut and then sewed, you're already depending on other people. So it's a matter of taking that idea that we're all interdependent upon each other, of getting things accomplished, of doing things. And sometimes it's, if you're conscious about it, sometimes you're unconscious. In teaching, we try to be more conscious, more aware, more of being in the time. Innovation just become, as an artist, you're always innovating. You're always thinking of something new. You're always, you know, you get a tool and think, well, what can I do with it? How can I work with this? And that's my attitude towards technology, is that it's a great tool, and it's, you can do more with it than write an email. Years ago, there was an advertisement, a television advertisement in America for IBM, and they're talking about these new computers. And the advertisement was, first you saw of a Chinese teenager staring at their computer, and then you saw an American teenager staring at their computer. And as the camera moved back, you saw they were both in their separate classrooms, one in China, one in America, and they were having a staring contest online across the globe. And that clicked something. Well, even before that, I was interested, but I thought it was a really good advertisement for showing people the potential of technology and communication technology. Not everybody thinks of it in those terms, of creating this global collaborative network. And that's what KidLink is doing through education. And there are a few other programs here, but I was really excited to be introduced to all you KidLink folks. I studied art. I didn't get a degree. A few years later, I went back and got a bachelor's degree in history. Then later did my master's of education in educational technology, and then my doctorate an EDD in learning technologies. I've got probably over 25 years experience in formal and informal learning environments. I served in a military and taught there and it was a different language, so I taught in a different language. That's more training, but there was some teaching. Then I went back and I led, it was in Israel, and I went back 10 years later and worked with Jewish, Muslim, and Christian kids doing collaborative art workshops. You know, taking kids from 3 different villages and putting in every couple of weeks meeting in a school to talk to each other, to play games like, my name is David, tossing a roll of string to Lucine. She said, hi, I'm David, I'm Lucine, tossing it to someone else. And then we'd walk through their villages, go into their house of worship, and then do collaborative art. So that we were exposing neighbors who had never been in each other's houses, in their villages, in their places of worship, to see that they're similar. They might speak a different language, but so what? You know, when you walked into a room and you saw all the teenagers, boys had posters of the same sports figures, and all the teenage girls had posters of the same singers, you saw that in reality, we really are interested in similar things. And I've worked in academic situations, museums, and corporate sectors. I think my favorite is museums. That's what we call free choice learning, learning on demand, where the people that come into the museum want to learn. They're not being forced to. And you know, you see that a lot in schools, but you also have the kids that don't fit in school and don't want to. But when they go to a museum, a car museum, an art museum, any museum, they're reaching out. They want to learn. And so along the way, started getting involved in new media. When I got involved in it, it was called interactive multimedia, and that was in around 1990 or 91. We were still designing for PCs or floppy disk. I made my first interactive program on a floppy disk, if you know what that is. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's funny, they weren't floppy, but we called them floppy disk. Because when I saw what you can do with interactive media, that you can combine images, you can combine, add video, audio, you can create a user-generated scenario, a user-generated tour, and you could stay as non-linear. You know, people learn often, they follow their interest, which often is a very non-linear way of working. It's the same in education. If you want to teach geography and mix it in with a little economics and a little art and a little biology, and send a student down one path, you know they're going to focus on one path, but they're going to wander around and look at these and be exposed to other ideas and other knowledge. And then when the web came on, and I was able to build interactives where people were able to add their own story to it and expand upon it. And I'll tell you about some examples of some projects I did later in this exhibition. So if you can briefly, Lucine, well, actually, I can do this. I can control it. Tell me where's that file? I don't have my cursor, so I'm having problems going through people. Lucine, could you just tell who's on your screen and ask them to say their name and where they're from and what they teach, and then choose the next person? I can't control my screen right now for that.
Sorry, David, I just didn't catch you.
And now I can't hear Lucine. Gloria, can you hear me? Can you speak?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you.
It's because of headphones, actually. David, please repeat your request, okay?
You know, maybe everybody, I think, has written their introduction on the chat. So I'll just go on, okay, and I'll look at all that after.
Okay, guys, can you make an introduction in the chat box, please? Actually, you can ask your questions at the end of the presentation. And David, just a minute, sorry for interrupting you. I would like to make a kind of warning. You know that the Zoom meeting lasts for 40 minutes in the free version, right? I'm now trying to make some kind of experiment, and I scheduled 2 sessions. So the second session will automatically begin after the first. But if something goes wrong, and if we are just suddenly interrupted, please join with the same link which I sent you, okay?
Excellent. Great idea. Thanks, Lucine.
Okay.
So the title of my talk is Thinking in Technology. And so the first thing, we've got to find that definition of technology that we can then learn how to think in it. So this came from dictionary.com. And if you look at it, I'll read it out. Technology is the branch of knowledge that deals with the creation and use of technical means and their interrelation with life, society, and the environment, drawing upon such objects as industrial arts, engineering, applied science, and pure science. Technology is the application of this knowledge for practical ends. Technology is the terminology of an art, science, etc., a technical nomenclature. Technology is a scientific or industrial process, invention, method, or the like. And technology is a sum of the ways in which social groups provide themselves with the material objects of their civilization. And as you can see here, I can see early technology of a Mesopotamian wheel and a fairly recent computer chip. Both are technologies. But if we look at that definition, what's missing from this definition? What's the thing that brings us all together? We see the importance, really important qualities here. The branch of knowledge that deals with creation, the application of knowledge, the terminology of an art, of a science, and a technical nomenclature, a scientific or industrial process, invention. The wheel was one. The sum of ways in which social groups provide themselves with the objects of their civilization. The word that's missing here is digital. Currently, when people speak about technology, they most often are speaking about digital technology. But technology is not only digital, and we need to recognize that as we move forward. The important component of that is that if we speak about digital technology in communication, we're speaking about chaos. Not every country, not every location has the same connectability, has the same powerful internet, or people have the kind of computers or digital tools necessary to really do the kind of work that we want. The area that I live in California is semi-rural. There's a big town spread across a big area, but with big spots, and we're surrounded by farmland. And in some of the distant, remote communities, the students don't have Wi-Fi. They barely have internet. They're doing all their work on telephones, mobile phones, cell phones. And I'm sure around the world, you're going to find people that are dealing with that same issue. I have some colleagues who went to Nepal about 10 years ago and went to a little village and helped them get set up with Wi-Fi. And so it's really, everybody talks about living in this digital age, about the bridges that bring people together. The problem is not everybody has the infrastructure to support it. So we as teachers, if we want to really reach out to them, we have to think really broadly with technology, and oftentimes step back and look at, don't look at the newest, the biggest, the best, the most fun, but look at the tools that we do have and find ways that we can use them that brings the power of technology and also introduces students to what they can actually do. Instead of just reading about it, or hearing about it on television or in the radio or the movies or through the friends or through some visitors, they actually get to do something with it. And I've been thinking more and more about this, about to cross the digital divide, we really need to, in some ways, step back a little bit so we can bring the rest of the people. Everybody's got stories to tell and things to share and things to learn about. And we need to make sure that access is happening. And it's not always happening from the top down, because the top down is working on really big things. We can work on the small things and use anything that they've got that we can access. Important point 1, and here it is. You do not need the biggest, newest, coolest technology to make educational, engaging, interesting, and ultimately fun content for learning. We could be doing this Zoom on a mobile phone. I'm on a MacBook Pro, so that's what I'm using. I've done it on a PC. I've had Zoom conversations with my daughter who is finishing up art school in Jerusalem. So as an artist, and she's an artist, dad-daughter thing, it's great. It's also really great that I get to be part of her life far away. And that's the beauty of what we can do. That's having that staring contest without staring, where we can talk to each other and share with each other. And you've all been doing it, but how can we expand this network? Important point number 2, the medium is the message. What do I mean by that? Marshall McLuhan. Are you guys familiar with Marshall McLuhan? Yes? Maybe?
Yes.
Cool. Well, then I'm sure you're familiar with what he's talking about, that every medium has a way of telling a story. A radio show, and I chose Star Wars as the example. Starting from the left part of your screen, you see a movie poster for Star Wars, a comic book for the same story, a book, a poster for a radio version, and a version in Japanese, just because it's been translated in like every language in the world. Each one of these is telling a story, but each one in a different way. So the people who created it, when they made the movie and decided to make a comic book, they had to find what was really critical to the story that works in a comic book. What?
No, sorry, I think, Bibash, I think it was you. Please mute your microphone.
Oh, no worries, no worries. And so, look at all these tools that you meet. I'm looking at the English teacher from FUYU, and the teacher in Russia. You're all using these great tools. The way is how we use them and how we collaborate with them. So, maybe I'm already speaking to the converted, but maybe I'm also I will get to some ideas of how we can create these stories. I mean, and we got to remember, one of the most important components of Star Wars were the Lego toys. All at once you were able to make movies and plays and whatever you wanted in your own room. When my son was 8, he would come with me to my office on days that he didn't have school and create stop motion animation films with those Lego figures. It was brilliant. The cognitive tools, the cognitive, pardon me, development that happens when you're doing that is just wonderful to watch. So what does this all mean? This is really part of the gist of what I'm talking about, of the sensibility of there are 2 ways to approach educational technology. One is technology as an administrative tool to manage a class. The college that I work at, I'm spending a lot of time, in fact, too much time on the administration of providing the tools for the teachers to just manage their class, keep track of grades, assignments, content, and that's what the students are doing. But they're not doing the second, which is technology as a teaching tool to engage students in learning, to introduce them to ways of working, producing, and communicating with each other. So the tool, and an example of that, an old form technology is a pencil. It starts, it's a writing tool. It's a drawing tool. Kids that are bored in school can use it to poke pictures, holes into paper. You can do more with a pencil than just write notes or an assignment. The computer is the same way. It should become part of the tool that a student will use and continue to use as they grow up. An example would be a case in West Africa. I don't remember the name of the gentleman. It was a person I saw on TED Talk probably 10, 15 years ago. He is a plant biologist, and his specialty are bananas. And for those of you that know, the Cavendish banana, which is the global banana, it's got a disease. It's traveling around the world and killing the plants. I mean, there are other kinds of bananas, but this is only going for the Cavendish. And so what he would do, he would be out in the field studying bananas and get phone calls from people in other countries that were dealing with banana problems. And they would take a picture of the banana, bless you. They'd take a picture of the banana and send it to him, and he could help them from afar. I mean, that's using the technology. The medium of this mobile phone is communication, the communication with images and video. And we need to do that with just about, in my mind, with just about everything, especially in a global network, because that's how we learn about each other. We learn what our desires, we learn the basic core competencies, we can share stories. We can do these educational projects that are based on project-based learning, meaning that, hello?
I would like to ask again and again to mute your microphones, or I will be forced to mute you all myself. Please mute your microphones.
Hey, the teacher said, got to watch out for the teacher. She'll put us under the desk. But the idea is that if we want to really live in a global community, we have to build a foundation for it. And you all are already doing it, but I think it needs to be expanded. We need, kids are in conflict, areas of conflict that, somebody in their family or neighborhood somewhere has access to a phone, a mobile phone. So we need to provide a door for them to join us. We need to go to the people where the infrastructure isn't set up and they have the very minimal, and we need to provide content that allows them to join us and everybody else. And that way we learn about them. We learn about the issues of the refugees and migrations. We learn about really what's going on with people. We see our similarities and we celebrate our differences. I think that's important, a critical component of education. So here's some examples of some projects that I've seen that use this kind of digital technology in creative ways. There are all kinds of software for allowing people to travel around through space. You can go, you can travel to the moon, to Mars, have your own mini Star Trek. How do we use that technology in a really broader educational content? When I was in graduate school, I was given an assignment by one of my favorite professors. He gave us all this software for traveling through space. You can go into space, look in any direction, go in any direction, look forward, backwards, sideways, and we had to create a learning assignment. And I'd say everybody but me chose to go through space. Star Wars, Star Trek, look here, look for aliens. And I thought about how many stories and are based on myths, and how many myths have really permeated our different cultures. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, a lot of the myths are based on the stars and constellations that we look up and see. We're going to have different names for the same constellations. Pleiades, and say the Native Americans in the US are going to call those stars something else. So by looking at the stars, it creates this huge cultural narrative that allows people to define where they're at, who they are. But I began to think, well, what about the people on the southern hemisphere? They're looking at a completely different sky. They're not seeing what we see because they're looking in a completely different direction. And I think that's really wonderful. So I started to think, what if we had a program where, an assignment where you would go onto somewhere in the northern hemisphere, look up at the constellations, write about them, define them, what they are, where they are, and what myths they develop, and then go look on the southern hemisphere and look at their constellation and their stories and their myths and their narratives, and then combine them, compare them. You know, here's what we're looking at, the story of the myth of the people that created the gods, the planet. So how do they look at it down below? And so it's a way of learning about science, but also learning about the human beings that use science, that develop science. Maya Quest was something, one of the early days of the web. It was a group of, I think, graduate students who love to ride bicycles and explore. So about 6 or 10 people went down to Central America. They traveled through Central Mexico or Southern Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and they went to the Mayan temples. But as they rode along, they also had laptop computers and mobile phones, and back then you needed these little radar transmitters. And so every day they'd take pictures and post them onto a website, a very early website. And the students from all over the world who were signed into the program would then get to look at them and ask questions. They'd send questions back, and the next day, these group of people would respond to the questions that the students asked. I thought, what a great idea. What a great, first, the people that love to explore get to go out and explore, but they get to show and illustrate and teach people about these different cultures. You know, what if we had a global, you know, project around the world where people are riding along and just sharing the stories and the knowledge and cultures of these different communities. Music and math, you know, there's all kinds of programs and applications.
Are you talking to? No.
Now there's this program of music around the world where folk musicians and international global musicians who perform their instruments, a song on their instrument in their country, and then somebody else plays in their country, and then they're all edited together. So you get like Bob Marley sung by people in all over the Americas, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia. One song, everybody's doing it. You know, we get to collaborate in ways. And how do we take that into the school? The arts and sciences. I have ideas. In fact, I'm developing a project now for Kidling about a mural project that's partially digital. A group of students from schools around the world, 4 or 5 schools, will get together and develop a theme, and we'll all create an image that will be then sent out to the students to address that component. Either color it, fill it, do something with it, and then it'll be all brought together again. You know, the practical application of that is, I'm a big fan of graphic novels and comic books, especially about graphic literature. I like to read truth-based stories, memoirs, histories, biographies that introduce me to important people and cultures and countries. In my collection, I have books. I have a big interest in Jewish graphic novels. I have books about the genocide in Armenia, in Africa, Asia, Europe, about people telling their stories. And that's a great way of reaching out to students. You teach literacy, you teach about a culture, you teach them about how to use, how to critical thinking. Another important thing is that many of these graphic novels are produced by a group of creatives around the world. I saw one book where I met the author, who was an Asian man living in Los Angeles, who was using a colorist from Spain, a letter from England, somebody else from another country in Asia, and everybody was working on a component and putting it together. Usually when you hear about collaboration, you're hearing collaboration about corporations. But here we're using collaboration on an educational tool, an entertainment tool, but being managed by creatives, not always by social scientists. So students in your classes can learn to work with other people in different cultures and different languages through whatever their basic language is. You know, the tools that exist now for teaching language, we're in the middle of it right now at this moment. I'm in America speaking English. We have Russians, Armenians, Malaysians, Africans. We're all using English. But if I wanted to learn Russian, I could do it out of a book. I could do it out of tapes, or I can start conversations with people in Russia and learn that.